Sam Marshall shares uplifting stories and conversations with people making Johannesburg and the world a better place.
Yeah, that's exactly what we are doing. What a great song by Benny King, Stand By Me. And that's exactly, it feels like it's a segue into the conversation we're about to have with the CEO and founder of the character company, Jaco van Schalkwyk. Now, these guys, just wrap your head around this, right? They look at the well-being of South Africa's fatherless boys. Since 2012, the character company has been quietly transforming lives through values-based mentorship. Over 1,100 boys reached thus far, delivering nearly 10,000 hours of one-on-one sessions. Can you wrap your head around that number? It's astronomical. Jaco, good morning. Thank you for joining me.
Good morning. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be with you guys this morning.
Jaco, let me pat you on the back first for starting an organization that is changing the lives of young men, desperately needed in a country where we are facing so many ills. But take me back to the need. What was it that opened your eyes? What did you see? Where were you when this thing hit you on the head?
Yeah, thank you for that. I'll take that encouragement, but to God all the glory for it. Yeah, I tell you, it's my journey started with an absent father, and it's been a rough road, and not understanding necessarily what was the cause of it until much later in my life. And I was involved in community development work, and I've just again there saw the impact of just so few family environments where children grow up in. And so it came to a point where I just sat down and I thought, what is it that makes it so challenging for me? What is that causes the struggles that I'm walking with? And so, God planted a seed there that eventually grew into the character company, which was really, how can I use my own experience and the stuff that I've walked with in my life that make me feel so broken, and shape that into a space where we can actually address that for other boys. And I think initially it was just, if there could be one boy out there that doesn't have to go through the stuff that I went through, then it will be worth it. I didn't at that stage saw, the whole picture and where we are today, but so it came out of a very, very, very personal space for myself.
Yeah.
And just understanding that, we all just, like you said, that song is like, we just all need we need someone to stand
by us. That's all we need.
And we want to be seen. And for a young boy, when that is missing, a whole lot of stuff starts going wrong. That if not corrected, and it's never too late, but it gets harder and harder the older you are. And for us, that's the focus. It's just walking alongside our young boys and saying, we don't have the answers. We can't fix it all, but one thing I can tell you is you're not going to do this alone. And
I love it.
It's been a phenomenal blessing to see how these young men have changed, and how their lives have been shaped just because they are positive male role models that step in and saying, let's walk this together.
But these are, and give me an age range of the kind of young men that you deal with, and then if you could, obviously not with the. Not to expose anybody's challenges, but if you could maybe give us one or two of the backgrounds of where these boys come from. Is it as simple as just fatherlessness? And I'm trying to obviously not downplay the fact that a home without a father in many ways is a home that's directionless, right? But is it as simple as what the core mission is? There are no fathers, or are we dealing with boys that are going through other things, trauma, abandonment, the works?
Yeah, so I think, when we talk about fatherlessness, it actually covers a whole lot of categories. Now, we were fortunate, I won't say fortunate, but it was rough statistics, to be part of the State of the Fatherhood report last year. And so some of the stuff that we know at this stage is that 70% of our children are growing up in single-parent homes. 4 out of 5 boys do not have a positive male role model in their lives. It's now statistically shown that So 34% of boys, only 34% of boys grow up with their biological father in the house, and I'm telling you today that less than 30%, and it's a lot less, grow up with an intentional biological father in the house, or an intentional positive male role model. And when I say intentional, I mean there's a father that's there that are saying, I'm here and I'm going to walk this journey with you. And so those figures are staggering. But that's also
crazy.
You look at that, and then you look at our country, and you go like, oh, okay, well, that's why.
That explains everything.
That's why it looks the way it is, because there's just nothing. We're not teaching anything in the line of accountability, of morals, of a strong value system. And we see it day by day if we just look at the stuff that goes on. And so that's where the problem is. And so it's not just where the father is completely absent. Often it's also a case where the father is present but absent. So the father's there, but he works all the time. He's not spending time with his family. And for us, often the excuse is, but I have to work and I have to, provide for my family. And the challenge with that is that you are raising a family where you are absent. And now it becomes mom's responsibility. And we have an amazing group of single moms in our program, and I take my hat off to moms raising boys or children on their own. And it's the challenge with that is, it's not that moms are not good enough to do this; they're just not dad enough. And so it's just the way it is.
100%.
I'm a single dad with a daughter. There's stuff that I can't give her that only a strong female role model is going to be able to give. I need to understand that.
And that, Jaco, doesn't speak to your inability to provide. It's just that there is a particular role that a mom plays in a daughter's life, exactly for a boy, that cannot be substituted by another gender. It just cannot.
That's it. Yeah, and we need to be very clear about that, because often the argument becomes, but we don't need men to do this. And it's unfortunately you do. You want to raise a boy, you want to raise a girl, you're going to need a dad in that space. And so we are still currently the only organization that starts from as young as 5. So we start mentoring boys at 5.
That's early, wow.
And that's a wonderful age. I mean, between 5 and 10 to 12 is where dad's impact is the highest for boys and girls. And so we just said, we're going to have to start there. And it's going to have to be long-term. This is not a 6-month course, and then you're going to have a certificate on how to deal with an absent father. We are going to be in this for the long run. We are intentional about this. We are focused around the stuff that boys need. So it's zero technology, all play, outdoors. Let's
the stuff that builds character.
Yes, let's develop the stuff that's in you. So we are seeing you. We're seeing you for who you are. If you're a great singer, then that's what we're going to celebrate. We're going to show you what values look like. We're going to celebrate courage, and we're going to teach you the things so you can understand your own abilities and not just live in your limitations the whole time. And it's just, it is actually so simple. And if we all just step out there and become social fathers and look at the neighbor next door that's a single mom, or my family, and I just step into those spaces and saying, I have to walk this road anyway, so come with me. Let's see how this is going to look. Man, can you imagine what this country can look like? I
love it, and I think we come. It feels to me, Jaco, like we're going back to basics, because I grew up in the 70s, right? So the 70s were like a very different time. Like it wasn't just my dad; it was his brother that had the same kind of parental rights over me. It was my mom's sisters that if my mom was having a tough time, she would call up one of my aunts. They would call me, and it was always the aunt or the uncle that I revered, the one that I thought was super cool, and that uncle would step into that space, and it wouldn't be a conversation of, hey, you're messing up. It would be, boy, what's going on? And sometimes you just need that, and I love this idea. Take me back to where we are now, because it's back to basics. It's about honesty. It's about respect. It's about courage. It's about self-discipline. Very underrated. Self-discipline is something that I think we need to practice more of. And then kindness. Talk to me about those values, and how do you introduce those values? Because I know there's a one-on-one coaching. You talked about there's no cell phones. This is out and about. This is tactile experiences. This is getting your hands dirty, feeling your feet in the soil.
Yeah, this is, firstly, we're using these, what we call FAT guys, faithful, available, and teachable. These are the positive male role models that we put into the lives of these young boys. And so there's a lot of one-on-ones. There's a lot of small group interactions. I'm never part of 20 boys in a group. It's always maximum 5. And it really is about understanding where we are right now and where do we want to be. And that roadmap is our value system. And when we have a value system, we understand what it looks like. And so then I can go, we've got these 5 strong values that we introduce as a core, and we're saying, how am I going to get to that next place, how I'm going to be the best version of myself. And that's going to be my values. My values are going to drive me, and it's going to show me how to do it. And if we just live those values, it means that we get to live in a world where everything is governed by values. I'm going to practice kindness, which means I'm going to show that I've got a good heart. I'm going to show respect. I'm going to practice self-discipline. And all of those things are going to guide me to be the best version of myself, which means I'm going to walk into this world as the best version of myself.
Yeah, it's not lost on me that we're having this conversation in Women's Month. It's also not lost on me that we're having this conversation a couple of days before the National Dialogue, where we are talking about things like gender-based violence and everything else that's currently happening in our environment. But there's something interesting you mentioned a little bit earlier, that in some instances, the father is in the home, but he's not present. In some instances, the father's in the home, but he's working. How do we bring the dads that are, and I think there's a fair amount of guys, they're not evil guys, they unfortunately have not been given a proper toolkit on how to find the work-life balance. I'm sure they're beating themselves up inside every time they realize they're not at a soccer game, they're not making time, or they're short with their children, or they slightly answer aggressively. Talk to me about how you bring the dad who's interested along on this journey.
So we recognize early on that we are trying to fix something with something that's broken. So like my generation, I mean, I also grew up the same, as we're giving our ages away here. And in the time where, I unfortunately didn't have the positive male role models at that stage. And if I knew what I know now, I would have looked for them and I would have given them clear instructions. But yeah, I mean, there was some kind of a village around me, and it was Danny Marika across the street, and I would be disciplined there if I had to be. And so, when we look at our villages today, I mean, they are just wrecked. They are, it looks like a tornado has gone through it. And so, I think for us as dads, we have to understand that we need to equip ourselves. And so we recognize that early on, and so we've got a program called Men Around a Fire, where we actually very intentionally work with dads, and we work into the space of masculinity, so that we have stronger men that can guide our young boys. Because we now have a generation of boys that are growing up. I mean, we're just celebrating our what we call our alumni, which is boys that have been through the program, now becoming junior mentors.
That's like David and Kamo, right?
Like David and Kamo, yes. And I mean, these kids, I mean, they are amazing. Then they've got it sorted. I mean, their lives are not easy. They're dealing with the same struggles. But man, they have embraced mentorship. And so what we need to understand as men, and therefore as dads, is that we cannot do this alone. And so we need to step away from our own ego and our pride and say, I need someone around me to do this. I need to be connected with a group of positive male role models, not guys that I can stand next to the fire with and start swearing and getting drunk and my child sees that, but men that are going to hold me accountable, because that is the biggest thing we're missing right now. I mean, we're just listening to anything on the news, and all you're seeing is people that want to stand up on a stage, grab a microphone because it's election time or there's something that's coming, and talking about all these issues that they do nothing about. And when you start calling them out, it's dodging and diving, and no one can give you a straight answer, because we are not accountable to anyone. And our young people are looking at this, and they're seeing our behavior, and that's why they behave the way they do. And so we get angry about that, but we don't recognize that they're actually just following the examples that we set.
That's mirroring what they're seeing.
Yeah. Exactly. And so men need to come together. And so we work very hard at that, because dads need to understand that I need to step into those spaces, and it's unknown and it's scary, and I don't know, like I know what to do at work. I can do that, but I don't know what to do at home. And to be a provider doesn't mean that you just have to work and be away from your family to give money. You have to provide direction. You have to provide guidance. You have to provide mentorship for your son. Because otherwise he's going to grow up lost. And you have to deal with that later on.
And that means, Jaco, that you as a man, you'll have to work on yourself, because at some point your son, and I mean, I've got 3 boys, and I know that there are days between my sons and I that I have to really dig deep to not get frustrated, to understand where he's coming from. He is on his path, and sometimes that path is a bit rocky for me, because it's 25,000 questions and I'm on a deadline, and I need to be able to my philosophy has always been that any child should know, in their frame of reference, they should have their frame of reference should be a 70-30 split. 70% of hugs, kisses, I love you, all of those kind of things. And the 30% is kind of the tough talk conversations, and you're not pulling up your socks, and you need to do that. So that's the ratio for me, that when my son thinks back to his childhood, he's got to go, I woke up every morning with my father hugging me and saying, I love you, how did you sleep, are you good, my boy? So I want that as I want intentionally that to be part of his existence every morning.
That is so valuable. So the important stuff there is the balance, but also the intentionality. I mean, it is staggering how many young men and older men that I talk to that have never heard the words, I love you, I'm proud of you, from their fathers. And we need that. We are so desperate for that. And so if we don't find it there, we are going to look for it in all the wrong places.
Yeah.
And when you look at it, so what's happening right now is we've got a generation of young men growing up where that ratio doesn't exist. So it's either completely just anger and abuse that is become part of that space, or it is complete neglect. So it's like, you can do whatever you want. I've got such a tough day at work, I've got all these things happening, I just don't want another argument. So I'm not going to ask you about what's going on your phone. I'm not going to ask you, to engage with me. And I'm just going to be on my phone because that's my escape. And so I'm setting that example, and there's no eye contact. I mean, that stuff just steamrolls completely out of control. And that's why we need men in our life that are going to go, okay, guys, how are we going to parent together? And how are we going to bring our sons into a conversation, or our children, our families, and how do we do this? How do we constantly engage? And it's hard because it is constantly a reflection on, okay, what do I need to do differently? And it's not about what I do wrong. It's about where can I do better? What am I missing here? Because my son needs something. Our young men out there need something, and we are ignoring them. And it's, yeah, I mean, it's not getting better. I mean, just look at any statistics around anything. I mean, corruption, and it just, you put on the news, and I think of how much money is wasted that could have gone into raising boys to be better men. It's staggering. It's just like, it's frustrating. And I look at gender-based violence. I mean, the statistics today is worse than yesterday, and tomorrow will be worse than today. So
yeah, and I love what you're saying, Jaco, because what we don't realize, or maybe we do, but we are frozen by this idea. Young men are, in a fair amount of cases, involved in the gender-based violence stuff, the crime. Young men are I don't know what the stat is, but I think 3 or 4 times more likely to assault another man, end up being murdered. So we also we are, depending on what the vantage point are. I mean, men are still protecting their mothers, their sisters, and their friends, and we have a very active role to play. And to your point, we should hold each other accountable. But for that, you need a strong man who's rooted in values, who's rooted in self-esteem, self-confidence, and can be the leader. And even whether that's loudly or quietly, and say, well, we don't do that. We don't talk about women in that way.
Because no boy grow up or to be involved in a gang and a shooting and rape and gender-based violence. It's modeled to them. That's the behavior, because there's a lot of anger and frustration, and there's no one that guides them through even those things. And the conversation needs to be, when I'm standing with my friends next to a braai and someone makes a stupid, simple joke about a woman, and I laugh because I feel like I need to belong somewhere. My son sees that. In that moment, I'm perpetuating this whole issue, where I need friends that are going to go, like you said there, we don't talk about women like that. We don't behave like that. You never hit a woman, not even with a flower. And it's like, you need to be very specific about these things. And so if we don't teach that level of values and morals to our boys, if we don't teach them to be gentlemen and behave differently, then what's going to happen? If we don't show our daughters that, what's going to happen with the first guy that comes to court and wants her heart? What does that guy look like, and what does her standard look like? And so we have a big responsibility, and we need to, we owe it to ourselves, but definitely to our young people, to engage with men that are saying, we don't live like that. Not on my watch. And so we will be different, and we'll model something different. And it's going to be hard because we don't always know, because no one has shown us, but we're going to figure it out together. Just like I'm telling this boy that he's not going to walk alone, I'm not going to walk alone. Because all the statistics, more men are murdered by men I mean, if you look at the GBV statistics, men are the biggest victims there, number-wise. More men are murdered by other men than any other groups together.
Gender group, yeah.
And so, are we having those conversations? Are we providing a place for men to talk about their challenges in this? That is sometimes very difficult and is covered in shame. And and like if we don't do that, we're not starting the process. But the thing that we need to understand here, and I mean, we've just become a nation that loves to talk and not do anything, and that needs to change.
And we need action.
It's like,
we need action.
Yeah, we need to start saying, okay, well, as we walk, we'll talk. But we're not just talking and figuring, and the next week and next week and next week. This has to start changing now.
I agree with you. So we've run out of time. I can talk to you the whole day. I love what you're saying. I love the work of the Character Company, and I holistically 100% agree with everything you've espoused, and I think so do our listeners. Where can people get hold of you, get involved in the journey, volunteer, corporates that feel that this is their program that they could potentially adopt, as whether it's an internal, external program? How can they get hold of you?
Yeah, I think it's so important that we understand that it's not a question of should I get involved, it's where, when and where.
Yeah.
We need to start doing stuff, and the Character Company provides a great platform for that. So this is not just our problem, and it's not our responsibility alone to fix it. So we really need everyone to come together. We are on all the social media platforms. All the contact details is on our website, thecharactercompany.co.za. But please make contact. And even for dads or men out there that are just saying, man, I hear this, and I don't know where to find a group of men that I can start talking to. Please contact us. I mean, we're on Men Around the Fires, and we are not shy to come and sit around a fire with anyone and saying, let's talk about stuff that affects men and how can we do this together. Let's start groups where dads are journeying together and men are journeying together, and let's just be there for our boys. We need to make this world different, and we can. We are doing it, so we can do better if we have more.
I absolutely love it. Jaco van Schalkwyk, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time and the work that you're doing. And yeah, please keep doing it. And you are always welcome back on the show to talk about this very important subject.
Thank you so much. What a great time.
Thank you. That's Jaco van Schalkwyk. He's the founder, CEO of the Character Company. They are doing amazing work. I mean, over 1,100 young boys, and as I said, it's a journey. They walk this journey with these men, and hopefully that's 1,100 young men that will not become part of the statistic, that will actually break that cycle, whatever that cycle may be. And we need more organizations like this. It's not just the work that Jaco does, but there's also what Craig does with Father Nation, and what Zane Mias does with these projects. So there are men that are standing up, they getting other men around them and saying,